Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of CJ's Coins and Crafts. This episode, we will be looking at coins or types of coins, the difference between errors and non-errors. For this episode, I am not going to go into errors versus varieties. That can be a separate episode. But we are going to take a look at some things on this episode that some people are confusing as errors that are really not errors. Um, so some of the things that we're going to go through are non-errors. Most of this stuff on this side are non-errors. Stuff on this side are errors. So the first thing that I wanted to show is this one right here. And so what this is that this is a roll. This happens to be a brand new roll of 2018s. So, and then right across the face, you can see that there's this line right here. You can even see the outline of it. If I can get it right there, you can see it right here. And so what this is that this is if you see coins with this ring, you can see it goes almost all the way around. This is often considered by coin enthusiasts as the ring of death. And what it is that it is damage done to the face of the coin from the crimper machine that crimps these rolls, and it basically just goes along the face of the coin and damages it. So if you find circles like that on the face of coins, this is why. It's this crimper machine that damages the face of the coin. So you can see all the way down as I turn it around. You can see this blue kind of grayish mark, and that's the zinc showing that, and that's how far through the copper layer that it's cut. So if you happen to see that, that is not an error. That's a damaged coin. So I'll set that aside. So the first one that we're gonna look for past that one is this one right here, and we're gonna put it up on the scope. So this happens to be a 1989 Denver minted coin. So the part that I wanted to show though is right here underneath the D. I'm gonna get my little pointer. Is right here. So right here you'll see this extra loop down here. This is often considered by novice collectors as being a repunched mint mark. Well, 1989 was the last year that mint marks were hand punched into the dies. After 1989, they were actually part of the design of the dies, so you won't have any repunched mint marks. But what specifically this is, and you can find this all across other coins, especially specifically past 1982, 1983, from when the Lincoln cent changed from a copper to a zinc core with a thin coating of copper. And so what this is that this is actually split plating. So the color difference that you see is actually the zinc core showing through where the copper plating has been broken. So if you see a color difference, then you will know that this is just a split plating. So we're going to take a look at the back. Sometimes they show up on the back as well. Right there at the bottom of the T, right there, that's split plating. See if we can find any more. It on a lot of coins in like 80s, you'll see a lot of split plating across the top of the letters, and that's just where the die hits. Let's see what else we got. You'll see some abrasion right here that's taken away. The copper plating exposing the zinc, and also right here. So that's just a split plating. Okay, the next one we're gonna look at is a 1983. Now this 1983 has a lot of marks on it, and some people will think that there's scratches across the coin and it's a damaged coin. Well, this particular one, you can see right here, all these these scratches right here that are actually like, it looks like that it's underneath the design. We're gonna go to the back here, and I'll show you how it goes through all of the pillars, and especially all across here. What this is that this is actually polishing marks from a mint worker who was polishing or abrading the die that was used to strike this coin. So all of those polish marks, all of basically small tool marks, now show up on the coin because this is what has been polished on the die. Now this can happen for a number of reasons. It could be that this die was clashed with another one and they're trying to polish out the clash. It could just have some damage on the face of the die, and they're just trying to clean it off, or they're just trying to get a better cleaner strike over a worn die. So if you happen to see that, then all of these little marks that you guys see, right in here, and especially down here, these are all just tool marks that is polishing on the actual die itself. So the reason why I picked out this one is because this showed a lot of die abrasion, a lot of polishing, and so you can see these marks going across the face of the coin. Okay, now we're on to, we got to look at this one in hand. This is a 1999 Denver, and the importance of this one is that you'll see that there is almost no rim on this side and a heavy rim on this side. So what this is that if I flip it over, it's exactly centered, which means that the front of this is caused by a misaligned die. So the obverse die is actually in just a little bit off, and it's not straight, and that's what causes this this rim to show up like this. If this was an off-centered, it would be off-centered like this on both sides. That would be an off-centered strike. But since this is center on the reverse and it's just off on the front, this is a misaligned die. This is not an error. It doesn't bring any extra value. It looks kind of neat. I picked out this one because it has the devices all the way at the rim, but doesn't quite go over. So this is a misaligned die. Okay, here's another one. So this is a counter stamp. So what this is this is a 1973 that somebody has taken a stamp to. That is Wyoming in a box. It could be the state outline. That somebody stamped into the coin. Some people think that this is an error. This is not an error. But some people actually do collect these coins that have the counter stamps in them. So you can find the JFK portrait. That was a thing. And then you can find a lot of different states. I know a couple of people that actually collect the ones with different states in them. And you can find these just going through coin rolls. So again, this is not an error. It was technically it's a damaged coin because it's defacing the coin from its original mint strike. But some people do collect them, but not necessarily an error. Okay. So this is another one that we're gonna look underneath the scope. And the reason why I picked this one is that this has very strong machine doubling on the reverse. Now machine doubling and doubled dies are often confused, but there is a very clear difference, and I'm going to leave that for another video. But in regards to this one, these areas right here that looks like doubling is actually machine doubling. So when this coin was struck, the die came down and basically struck the coin twice. And you see how these areas are, they are flat and they look like little shelves. Anytime that you have a flat shelf-like appearance, this is machine doubling, or MD. One of the biggest ways that I can tell from experience is that it will, the doubling aspect of it will actually have a different color to it. So you see how these are lighter colored areas than the devices. That's machine doubling. If this was a double die, these areas, we would see the lines possibly of separation, but they would be raised and they would be the same toning and the same color as the letters. They wouldn't be off colored like this. So if you see this is machine doubling. Okay, now let's get into, let's go back here. We're going to get into some coins that are actually errors. So an error is basically when something happens at the mint that it's not supposed to happen. So the first one is this one right here. This is a blank planchet. So this is what a Lincoln penny looks like before it's stamped into a coin. So this happens to be blank on both sides. It's and you can find these in circulation. This one I actually found in a box of pennies that I was going through. So they can be found in circulation, and you can pick them up for a nominal price off of eBay or Amazon or wherever online. This next one, I have two examples, and this is a struck through grease. So what can happen when you have a struck through grease is that when the dies are striking and there's foreign material in between the dies, such as grease, then it weakens the design. So we're going to look at this one first, underneath the scope. Okay, so right here, you can see that this should say trust right here, because you can see the T, the S, the U, the R, and the T. It should say trust right here. So as I move the coin around, we can see that there's a full date, and most of Liberty is missing. And then in, God, and then we is mostly there, but it's really faded. Now, the reason why this is a grease error and not a damaged coin is because this rim is still intact. Now, if you guys remember from the previous video that I did in this series, that was the primer to the Lincoln Cents, we talked about the rim. The rim is raised up and it basically protects the design. So if the rim is completely worn down and this is worn down, then that would just be damage. But with this design missing, there was actually grease in the die when this struck. So this is a grease error, or a struck through grease. So I have another example of it. That was a 1972. This happens to be a 2000, and so you can see the date right here. It's 2000. The date's actually right here, but it's struck through grease, and that makes the design basically disappear. So as I move this coin around, you'll see that, okay, the trust, the motto is mostly there. We're missing some words over there, and as we go down, Liberty is basically all there. The B is a little bit weak, but I picked this one out because like I can move it up and you can see the sorry for the glare, the 2000 right there. But if you just had this coin in hand, you would be able to see it at that kind of magnification. It basically disappears. So that is also a struck through grease. Okay, a few more. Let's do this one. This is what is called a cud error. So what the cud error is that I'm going to show you down here. The obverse die that was used to strike this coin, a piece of it broke off. Without that metal being there, there's nothing there to push the metal away. So it leaves this big chunk of extra metal. On these types of errors, it is called a cud because it's at the rim. If you have like die chips or anything like that on the interior of the coin, meaning anywhere in the devices or on the portrait, that is an interior die break. Cuds are specifically at the rim. So, and this one I also found in circulation. So these are items that you can find in circulation. There's that one. Okay, this one's really neat. I have a second example up here that I was going to use as far as a nickel. But basically, this is a clipped planchet. So when we talk about the blanks that were punched from the strip of metal, if the metal doesn't feed correctly and it punches out another blank over an area that had already been punched out, that's called a clipped planchet. So here, this one happens to be a double clip. So I got one right here, and I got one right here. So with this double clipped planchet, the design is going to be weaker on the reverse, and you can see these because they almost look curved a little bit. So we'll go to the reverse, and you can see where it's clipped, the design is weak or missing. So my other example is this one, which I just recently found, and this is a nickel, and this is a single clipped planchet, and that's exactly what it looks like. Is that it looks like that I just got a piece bit out of it. So you can find these in various stages. They can be small like this one, or they can be like half of the coin. And these are really neat to find. I've only found a few of these as far as clipped planchets. Okay, let's take a look at die clashes. So I've got two examples for die clashes. Die clashes are when the dies come together to strike a coin, but there's no planchet in between the dies. So they come together and they clash on each other. And what this does is that this takes the design and transfers it to the opposite die. So you have some design features that go across. So this one right here, let's see, you can see it on the back, a little bit on the front. So we're going to take a look at this. This is a 1974 Denver that we're going to look on the scope. Okay, for reference, this is his portrait. And right down here, just immediately underneath his chin, pointer, see this line right here? That is one of the bays from the reverse design. This is one of those. So as I move the coin, you can see more right here. So these are the bays. So this is what shows up on the obverse. So let's look at the reverse and see if we can see it. So the design is actually right here. So in this bay 3 and 4 is where you see the front of Lincoln and his vest. So it's basically this part right here that comes down. right in here in bay 3 and 4. Now over on this side, it's really been polished out, but you can kind of see it. Right in this area, this is Abraham's chin. You can see it starts right here and it goes across. So right in here is where you'll find Abe's chin. So if you happen to find these are really neat. So I have a better example that I found in circulation, and I don't even need to have a microscope to look at it because it shows up. Focus. It shows up extremely heavy. So you can see that it's a little bit of an angle. But there's the bottom right there. And then you've got bays through the Y, a bay right here, a bay right here, and the bottom of the memorial building right there. So this is a 1984 obverse clash that I found. You can find these in various states depending on if they've been polished out or if they're fresh. This is one of the strongest examples that I have in my collection. Okay, last one that we're going to look at for this video. This is a struck through die cap. So what happens? Let's get this focused in. Focus. Come on. There we go. So this is reversed, and you can see the entire design is there. Then when we go to the obverse, it's basically missing. Although, as I tilt it around, you can see that almost all of the design elements are there. Most of it is missing. So what happened is that there was a planchet, a coin that was struck, and it stuck to the die. And as it was stuck to the die, it continued striking coins. So with that blockage in front of the die, it cannot strike the full design. So this is one of those coins that was struck through basically another coin that was stuck on top of the die, and it's called a struck through die cap. So this was a really neat find for me. I have no idea what the date is. I want to say like 97 or something. But it's just a really neat design. I'm sorry, really neat error. And you can also find these in pocket change and in coin roll hunting. So those are the errors and non-errors that we were going to look at for this episode. If you guys like this video, please hit the like button below and hit the subscribe button. Make sure and hit the bell right down there. So you guys are notified when I upload new videos. If you guys have suggestions for other types of videos that you would like to see, go ahead and put it in the comment section below, or send it to my email, which is right at the bottom of the screen. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one.